and welcome. So this is the first stream I'm doing of this, and I'm also going to be popping this up on YouTube. And that Windows notification was really loud. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to go through basically sort of how to use Lightroom to edit and catalogue photos that you've taken. So on Tuesday night there, we went along to a gig of very good friends of ours who put on a really good rock metal sort of show and took some photos. Gig photography is something that I've done for quite a while. Haven't been done much of it recently, but thought I'd get onto it and get some photos, and I thought that would be a good opportunity to do this just now. So this is obviously just what I've learned through my years of doing photography, editing photos, doing live photos. Not everything that I do will be exactly correct. I'll only, obviously know the way that I've been or I've taught myself to do it. But I'm hoping that anyone that watches this will be able to pick up some tips. Obviously can ask any questions that they've got. So let's just get into it. If you have Lightroom, now this is Lightroom 5. I don't have the more recent version of Lightroom, like the sort of monthly subscription one, but this was the last one that they did before they went to the monthly thing. I can't imagine it looks much different now, to be honest. This seems to be the typical kind of Lightroom view. And this is what you see once you've uploaded your photos from your memory card. This is your library, and you can just see all the photos. There's a few things you can do in here, but most of what we're going to be doing is in develop up here. Now I'm going to take you through the process that I use on how to decide what photos to develop and how to kind of catalogue them along the way. So here we have, now these were the support bands before the actual band comes on. If you ever end up doing gig photography yourself, I always recommend taking some photos of the bands beforehand. Lets you get a feeling for the sort of space you've got, the light that you're working with, all those kind of things. And also it's good to show support to the support bands because, they're all trying to get that top slot themselves, and it's good to show them a little bit of support. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through all of the photos rather quickly, and this is where we decide what photos we're going to go ahead and edit. We don't want to edit every single photo that we take. There's 185 photos here. Don't really want to edit all of them. There's no reason to edit all of them. They won't all be good. Let's just say that. But we're going to go through these. We're going to pick our sort of favourites, and we're going to whittle them down through there. So the way that I like to do it is simply have a look at them in the big screen here. So once you're in develop, you'll get this little film strip down here where you can click on the different photos. Now, just for this video, I'm not going to develop any of the support band photos, but obviously normally I would have a look at them. So here we go. Now, not all of your photos are going to be good. Let's just put that out there right now. So there's no problem with skipping over. As I'm going through this a little bit, I'm going to go into the sort of intricacies of doing live music photographs compared to doing, say, like portrait photographs or studio photographs, that kind of thing. There's a lot of differences. And with live gigs, there's more things changing, there's more things going on. You're probably taking more photos then you might normally, they're not going to be ones that you end up keeping. And it can be because you're testing out the light, you know, or, you know, it could just be you've taken a photo a split second too late. So I'm not sure what was going on in this photo, but it's not one I'm going to edit. So we just carry on through. Now, you can use the keyboard for this as well, or you can just click on them. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to rate them. Now, this is the way that I personally do this. If I want to edit a photo, I will rate it 3. That's just by pressing number 3 on the keyboard. And later on, we can filter these out and we'll look at all the ones that we've rated 3, and then we'll filter that down to 2 and then 1. That kind of makes it a little bit easier. So these ones, oh, didn't mean to do that. Not too bothered about that one. Okay, I'll set that to a 3. I'm still not sure about it, but we'll see. So now, while you're in this view, you can zoom in. You can set your zoom level, but it's good to just check the sort of clarity. You see these are quite noisy photos, but these were taken in quite a dark space, so we'll deal with all the noise in that later. But let's... I quite like that, so let's set that as a 3, we'll set that one as a 3. And we're just going to go through these. I might skip forward a little bit in the video for this. Obviously live you're not going to get any skip forwards, but just so that we're not going through it and it's not taking too long. But basically we're going through and we're sort of, it's good to go back and forward, you know, it's good to sort of have a look, think, is that one I want to bother editing? You know, is there potential I can get out of it? But you want to keep going through and rate the ones that you want to have a go with at 3. You can come back and forward as many times as you like. You know, there's no limit to this. All we're doing with this is really just getting rid of the ones that we're not interested in. So also you see here we've got a few kind of very similar, slightly different, but still, you know, very similar. Maybe just pick one out of them, see what we can do with it. Okay, we'll take all of these ones because they could potentially be quite interesting. What you also have to take into account is how these could look once they're cropped. Sort of some really good facial expressions going on here. Obviously, if the light's a little bit off, if it just doesn't feel right, remember that you will be editing that as well. Those I quite like. They are quite out of focus though. So here's the thing to talk about right now, and this is one of the gig photography sort of things. Is focus is very, very important when you're taking photos. You know, you want to make sure generally that your photos are in sharp focus, that you're highlighting the areas that you want to highlight. Thank you very much. That you're bringing the eye to the areas that you want to with your focus. Now, generally, the sort of rule of thumb for photography is that if it's out of focus, it's not great. When you're taking live photographs, especially live music, what happens is the people that you're photographing, they're not standing still. They are not posing for you. They're not, they're not even aiming their body. As you can see in this photo, they're not even aiming their body towards you. What happens is you get photos that are out of focus. You get photos that are cropped badly. You get photos like this, where, eh, there's nothing much really great going on. It's not a great photo. But yeah, before there's any questions, yes, that man is naked and drumming. He gets very warm when he's drumming. So carry on. Yeah. So I love that. I love that little hair movement we've got there. Focus isn't the most important thing with live music. What you're trying to capture is you're trying to capture the spirit or the essence of what is going on in that gig. You can't always do that in perfect focus. Here's a little example of how at one point we're not focused, at the other point we are. But it's, that's that's gone too far out of the focus. But it's more important to capture the spirit of what's happening. And if that is something that is energetic, if it's high octane people on stage, focus isn't, being perfectly sharp focus isn't your main concern. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, you can get away with sloppy photos, and obviously when you do get lovely sharp focus, it does make a difference. But there's there's many little intricacies that happen while taking live music photos that me personally I really love. I understand that a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't enjoy it because it is so different to doing studio photographs, to doing headshots, to doing that kind of thing. It's just miles away from that, really. But I quite like that. Nice little bit of pink light going on there. But yeah, I think the most important thing is that you're capturing what's going on stage. I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to take something that is in motion and trying to capture that into a still, which is not an easy thing to do. It's not straightforward, but we will try our best. So just get through these photos. As you can see, I'm picking some I quite like that I'm going to be editing. Some of them, for example, this one, it's just not worked out, so I'm not really going to keep it. These ones are potentially interesting. I like that one. There's Giant the drummer hiding behind these drums. It's really hard to get photos of drummers. I really wish that it was easier, but sadly it's not. Okay. So when you're doing this, when you're sort of going through this process, don't be afraid, obviously, of going back and going forward. As I said, remember that you can crop, you can obviously edit in certain ways. Ah, there we go. We finally got his face. That can bring out the photo more than what you're just sort of seeing on the screen. So now that photo is where I wish that I was using a wider lens. Lens choice is another thing that we can talk about at some point. Like how it looks like he's singing into the wrong end of the microphone stand there. Okay, so that's us at the end of these photos. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through them and just check that maybe there's some I've overlooked. This will be a bit quicker now. We're not going to like delete photos, no photos are disappearing or anything like that, but it's just a good thing to sort of have a look. We can, these are the ones that we've rated 3 stars so far. We've got 74, so that's quite a few to go through, but let's just have a little double check. So, yeah. So lens choice. Let's talk about lens choice. Let's talk about low light photography in general. Low light photography is it's gig photography and low light photography kind of come hand in hand, unless you're shooting say festivals in daylight. It's very unlikely you are going to be shooting live music with perfect light. It doesn't happen. Depending on where you're taking your photos, of course. Sometimes they're going to be in dingy basements with little LED lights, you know, from the ceiling, and they're not designed to create good photographs. You know, they're designed just to light the people on stage. So that's something that us as photographers have to work around. Now, one of the ways that we work around that is by making sure that we get as much light into the camera as possible. Now, I'm not going to go through the sort of kind of basics of like ISO, aperture, shutter speed, that kind of stuff here. I'm sure there's a lot of videos out there that will explain that. But for gigs, for low light, you pretty much want to go quite high. You're going to have to go high ISO. Obviously, if you can go low, the lower you can go, the better. Higher ISO means more noise. So if you could go lower, you're going to get better quality. But it's just unlikely you're going to get the luxury to do that, shall we say. And you're wanting really the biggest aperture you can get. Now, if you look up here in the top right hand corner, you can see that I was using a 50mm lens at 1.8. 50mm is a great lens. 50mm and 85, I think it is. Could be wrong with that, but I think are good because they have such wide apertures. Now, you can get f-stops lower than 1.8. Very expensive. The 50mm 1.8 lens for Canon and Nikon, I think, like general DSLRs, are relatively inexpensive. You also want a camera that can handle high ISOs. Now, every camera is different. Some handle higher ISOs better than others. Some cameras, you know, once you get up to the sort of 6400s, the noise is extreme. I did choose the camera that I'm using because of its sort of ability to handle high ISOs while still being you know, relatively inexpensive. This is not an expensive camera I use. So even though the sort of cost and value of a camera that you're using, it does make a difference. Don't get me wrong. So your sort of more expensive lenses, your more expensive bodies, all that kind of thing, it does make a difference. You can still shoot well with a simple 50mm 1.8, as long as you can get up to, as I say, all of these are shot at 6400. I just have that set when I'm doing these photos because I know that I'm not gonna, you know, be able to shoot any lesser ISO than that. I managed to get a good level at sort of shutter speed 3/20th of a second. Now that's quite fast, to be honest. I have shot gigs at much slower than that. So that wasn't too bad, and that allows me to get the crispness. If you're shooting much lower than that, you're gonna get much more blurring, which it can work. It can work pretty well. But I was the lights in this gig were pretty good. Got some nice effects off them actually, so I managed to shoot. And these were my settings really for the whole gig. I don't think I changed them, to be honest. You don't have the time in live music to be changing your settings too much. That's not to say you should sort of set it and forget it. You know, you should be constantly checking how it's coming out, but because things are happening so fast on stage, you don't have time. You don't have time to be, you know, fiddling, changing dials, changing settings here and there. So you want to get to a good set, and you know, go with that. Okay, so I think we are pretty good. I've went through these a few times, so I've got 77 photos now. Okay, so now we get into the fun stuff, and this is developing your photos. 77 is not too bad. We'll do some batch editing. We've got, say, like, if you look at this combination of 3 here, all very similar. So once you've had a little bit of editing, we will be able to get rid of 2 of them. But for now, I'm going to start here rather than starting there, because we're at a different angle for these ones. So I'm not sure if I'll keep these ones, but we'll see. Let's start here and let's do our basic first edit. Now, this is a completely clean install of Lightroom that I had to do onto this computer. I have no presets, as you can see. I have nothing that I normally do, so all of this is going to be pretty much from scratch. I need to see if I can remember how to do all of this stuff, but I'm sure we'll be fine. So the great thing about Lightroom is it sort of lists it in order. You can pretty much start from the top and work your way down. The first thing we're going to do is have a look at the white balance. Now I feel like the white balance is okay, but we're just going to have a check now. Pick up this little picker here. Now what you would normally do is you place this to target neutral to just balance out the colours for you. So, and if you look in the top left hand corner up here, you can see if I was to place it there, see the different hues that it's going to apply to it. I'm going to try this, try and get as clean as possible. Okay, so you can see what that's done. Okay, if we press Y here, on the left you have your before shot, on the right you have your after shot. You want to be doing this quite regularly so that you can compare the sort of difference. No, I don't want to do that. Yep, so as I say, you'll have to excuse me because I'm still remembering how all this works.